Hey VC, how's it going? Just watched Fred's 1979 video, 10 great choices. I've spent a week just pulling out records from that year, and I come up with a list of 10 this morning, and half of them were the same as what Fred had. So I've bumped a couple. You can see there, Serge Gainsbourg and Talking Heads for her music, just with a view to keeping things interesting, adding a bit of variety. But I do have a couple of duplications, so I'll kick off with those. I had to put in Tusk, despite the fact that Fred has shown it. Fleetwood Mac. This is the follow-up to Rumours. Rumours was obviously at that stage one of the biggest selling records of all time. Well, it still is, but I think at that time it may have actually been the biggest selling record. This came out 2 years later and was seen as a complete folly. I think it's a fascinating record. 20 tracks, 4 sides of vinyl. Contributions from the 3 main songwriters, Christine McVie, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, but it really is Lindsey's record. The stuff that he has put on here, the stuff that he's written and obviously self-produced, I think wouldn't be out of place on a Talking Heads record. I mean, obviously I mentioned Fear of Music behind me. It has that all of the songs have that spiky, angular feel to them, which you associate with Talking Heads. I think Fear of Music is actually the best Talking Heads album. That's my choice. But as I say, you know, when you listen to these songs that Lindsey's written and put on this record, you know, the sparse production, they could quite easily sit in a Talking Heads record. You know, that's what I think anyway. But yeah, this is a great album. If you haven't heard it, you know, pick it up. I find it strange actually now when you see it in the shops. You know, it's been reissued on vinyl and it costs 30 odd quid. They were the first band that I saw in 1988, and I must have picked this up at the time. And this always seemed, at that time, it always seemed to be one of those records that was in a bargain bin. I think I paid 3 or 4 quid for this, and I must admit, whenever I see it, I almost feel like that's what what you should be paying for it. You know, but yeah, it's funny how things change and how fashion changes. But it is a great record. If you haven't heard it, try it. You know, Fleetwood Mac, Tusk. Okay, the other duplication, London Calling by The Clash. This famously was stated by Rolling Stone magazine as being the best album of the 1980s, despite the fact it came out in December 1979. This album has it all. I think you could actually argue that this is the only Clash album that you need. I like the other stuff. I like the first album. It's a classic punk album. Sandinista, you know, it's just a monster. You know, it goes in every direction you can think of. And obviously then there's, you know, great stuff on Combat Rock. You know, some great singles on there. But as a complete album, you know, this is perfect. Very, very few albums will. Very few bands will make an album like this. This has it all, and I say this has every style that they covered in. It's got bits of reggae in here, bits of punk, bits of rock, soul tunes. The final track on here isn't even listed, which is Train in Vain, and that is a perfect pop song. You know, the fact that they gave that song away, I think, as a flexi with the NME magazine in 1979, and then sort of realised later on that it was such a good song it had to go on the album, and he's on the album but isn't credited. I mean, that just goes to show the standard of stuff that were knocking out at the time. A wonderful record. Yeah, I mean, everybody will know this, but yeah, the Clash, London Calling. Okay, one of the great debut albums, the first album by the Specials, relatively local band to me here from Coventry. That great two-tone ska sound. This is just a great album from start to finish. It's a mixture of cover versions and original stuff. Covers such as Monkey Man, A Message to You, Rudy, but then mixed in with, you know, great originals such as Too Much Too Young, Nightclub. And this is the thing about most of these albums that I'm showing here. You know, these aren't obscure alternative records. You know, Too Much Too Young was a #1 single here in the UK. You know, the stuff off the Clash's album, the singles off that, you know, London Calling itself, you know, these were big hit singles. You know, this is very much the music of the time, and that's what I find fascinating about 1979, 1980, just the quality of the music and the fact that this music was in the mainstream. But yeah, this is just a great debut album. They have reformed in recent years. If ever you get the chance to see them, do so. They're still a great live band. But yeah, the specials debut. Okay, if I had to pick a band to say was my favourite band, it would be the Jam. They're certainly the band that I've listened to the most over the years. Now, over the last couple of videos, I've avoided putting their records in. I know that Tim has shown In the City and All Mod Cons. All Mod Cons is the record which is often cited as being their best album. For me, it all starts with this one. My favourite period of the Jam is probably from here through to the end, so including Sound Effects and The Gift, purely because of the change in musical style, the fact that that Paul Weller's songwriting was clearly growing and improving, all these different influences coming in, and it really just started with this record because of the single, The Eaton Rifles, which is on this. It's top 3 single in the UK. And on the back of that, for the next few years, they were clearly the biggest band in the country. This album was meant to be a concept album. You can tell by some of the songs it's meant to be a tale of three friends. And you still pick that up with songs like Thick as Thieves and Little Boy Soldiers. But I think that sort of theme lost its way, and it's just got general stuff on here in the end. But yeah, a great album. And just a real sign of what was going to happen with his songwriting in the future. But yeah, the Jam Setting Suns. Okay, I mentioned before in my last video about Chic and Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards. This is another Chic produced album. This is Sister Sledge, We Are Family. For me, this is their best work. Again, this is a record which is always cheap. This is on Atlantic. It's got the big tunes on it, Lost in Music, We Are Family, but the one for me, and I think probably Nile Rodgers' finest work, is Thinking of You. I love that guitar part. A great disco song, one of the best disco records. So yeah, that's why that's in here. So Sister Sledge, We Are Family. So one of the duplication, forgot about this. Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album. Just a perfect Saturday night record. I mean, side one, what you got? Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, Working Day and Night, Get on the Floor. It doesn't get much better than that for a side of vinyl. But despite it being Michael Jackson's finest work, it's just as much as a Quincy Jones album as it is a Michael Jackson record. Produced by Quincy Jones, he's assembled the songwriters, the band itself. So I think just as much credit should go to Quincy Jones for this record. It's a perfect pop soul album, better than Thriller. Obviously Thriller's the one that everybody knows, and obviously it's still the biggest selling record of all time, I think, isn't it? But yeah, this for me just works better as an album, and it's just got a real innocence to it, a real naive innocence, which I suppose comes from the style of music as well, the fact it's so disco orientated. But yeah, everybody will know this, but yeah, Off the Wall, great album. Okay, Adamant, Dirk Wears White Socks. 1979 for me is, I was born in 1975. This is really my earliest memory of music, is from this period. Now I've got a sister that's 10 years older than me, so growing up we had one record player in the house, which was in the living room. So when she was in a teen, she was obviously buying records and she'd play them. She had to play them. That record player was the only one that we had, so we all got to hear it, and it was at that time as well she'd be taping the top 40 of the charts, so it's very much music from this period that I heard growing up. Now I'm not saying that I necessarily heard these songs in 1979, but certainly from 1980, 81, 82, that's when I'd have heard this music, I imagine. Adamant was the first artist that I really took notice of as a kid. I can imagine that, him appealing to kids, from the point of view of all the makeup and the pantomime that goes with it. But that was a little bit later. This came out in 79, and this is basically a straight punk record. I didn't hear this until the late 80s, I shouldn't imagine. But this is a great punk album. You would never know where he was going with the whole Dandy Highwayman thing by hearing this record. There's great songwriting, but still a very interesting twist to the whole thing. So very, very Adam, He's touring again next year. If you get a chance to see him, he's doing a Greatest Hits tour. Go and see him, because he's still got that punk attitude, still got the great songs. So yeah, Dirk Wears White Socks, Adam and the Ants. Okay, now I say all of those records I'd been familiar with around that sort of time. These next three are definitely records that I would have heard about before I heard them, and that have been relatively recent years. This is a reggae record from '79, Misty and Roots, Live at the Counter, Eurovision 1979. I heard about this through John Peel. John Peel used to cite this as being one of his favourite albums. It's a reggae album, roots reggae album from '79. It's a live recording, clearly. I think this is actually their debut. I think every track is about Rastafarism. Yeah, a great album. One of my favourite reggae albums. You still find it relatively cheaply, you know. So, but yeah, that's that was the first reggae album that I put in my list. So, yeah, good stuff. Okay, I was going to show another reggae album in the Gainsbourg record, but instead I'll show Mikey Dread, Dread at the Controls. This is one of my favourite dub reggae albums. I think I mentioned this before. Certainly one of my top 3 dub records. This is a reissue on Trojan. Yeah, just great late night music. Yeah, Mikey Dread. Okay, and finally, Fela Kuti, one of my favourite Fela Kuti records. Certainly in my top 3. I showed Expensive Shit before. I could have showed Zombie for '76, which is a favourite of mine. But yeah, I put this one in for '79, Unknown Soldier. This record is very much a reaction to an event that happened in, I think, the year prior to this. Fela's compound was raided, which resulted in a number of people being beaten, and I think it actually led to his mother being killed. I think she was thrown out of a window, and basically on the back of that, the reaction to that was this record. It's a very angry album, very hard album, but yeah, definitely one of his best. This is an original copy, Nigerian copy. Yeah, I've shown this in the video before, picked this up a couple of years ago, but yeah, definitely one of Fela's best. Right, cheers.